welcome to ONYX Pages. My name is Njeri and I want to film a video today in response to a tag created by Diana in Color, and I will put a card to her video somewhere over here. Diana in Color, if you haven't had the pleasure of watching her videos, is a brilliant young woman. I believe that she is in the UK, and she just started her channel, and her channel is so beautifully and creatively done. She is very widely and broadly read and has such insightful comments to make about the books that she reads, and she's also very fashionable. And so yes, I would definitely encourage you to check out her booktube channel and give her lots of love. I also want to shout out somebody who has also created a video as a part of this tag as well, and that is Hélène, and Hélène has a channel called Books by Lanes, and Hélène is also very awesome. I have just found out about her channel. I believe last year she started a series called Black Writers Matter, I believe, and she has read a number of different Black authors, and from poets to nonfiction writers to fiction writers, and her channel is also so eloquently and lovelily done, and she's also really fantastic as well, and irreverent, which is perfect. So also check out her channel as well as the video that she has filmed as a part of this tag. What tag, you ask? Well, this is the Shithole Countries tag created by Diana in Color, and as I'm sure you know, a certain political leader made comments, and those comments rightfully attracted the anger and the resistance, and thanks to Diana in Color, the creativity of people around the world. And this tag asks you to pick up a couple of books written by authors from these countries and to talk about them. Since I don't actually own enough books from these countries, which was a great learning for me, so thank you, Diana, for that opportunity to self-reflect. What I've done is I've chosen 5 books that are inspired by those comments, and my book choices are about what we need to do within ourselves and in our communities to respond when comments like these are made, and what potential sources of strength there might be. So I hope that you enjoy this video. Please share your comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts about the books that I've identified, and if you are touched or moved or have been thinking about how to respond to what you've heard in the news, if you have, then please feel free to create a video of your own and be sure to tag Diana in Color when you do so. Okay, without further ado, I hope you enjoy the video, which is that there are amazing literary cultural producers across the globe, in particular from the countries that were identified, and they're creating wonderful work, and we should be reading more of their work, because if we don't read that work, then we may unconsciously start believing that their work is not of value. And I think that certainly, if I look at my purchasing choices, I am not purchasing books from parts of the world outside of North America, which is something that this tag has helped me realize. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about 5 books inspired by this tag. So the first one is Afro SF, Science Fiction by African Writers. It's an anthology edited by Ivor Hartmann. And it claims to be the first ever anthology of science fiction by African writers only, that was open to submissions from across Africa and abroad. I have not yet read any of the stories in this anthology, but the anthology does have names that I recognize, like Nadio Korafor, who's written, I believe, a short story called Moom, M-O-O-M, and there's also one other author whose work I've heard, who I'd heard of. No, just Nadio Korafor. And so I'm really excited about this, because I believe that every single writer in this anthology is from the African continent, I believe. And one thing that I noticed about this, as you know, I read Afrofuturism. This is Afro science fiction. Afrofuturism is a North American term that was created by a white man who wrote an essay called Black to the Future and interviewed 3 individuals about the absence of the Black voice and the Black imagination in science fiction at the time. And so the idea of Afrofuturism stems from the US, and part of what I appreciate about this anthology is that it's a way to understand and acknowledge that fabulous fiction, science fiction, has been written on the continent of Africa for decades, centuries. We are peoples who have always been looking up and outwards into the future and towards the galaxies. So I'm really looking forward to actually getting into this anthology. Okay. Now the second one is another anthology, and it's called West Indian Folktales, and these are folktales retold by Sherlock. And I've had this book for years. Apparently it originally belonged to Elizabeth Cargill Memorial Library of the Rosedale Presbyterian Church. I don't know how it got to me, but it's been on my bookshelf for a really long time. And so this collection, it's a collection of folk tales and fairy tales from the Caribbean. And what I like about it is because it tells stories, some of which I heard as a child growing up, but I believe that folk tales are a great way to bring lessons to young people and to carry culture across time. And when your culture and your country and your peoples are being attacked for who they are, one of the ways to hold on to the knowledge and the contributions that your people have made is by really looking back at the stories that were passed down through the generations. And at least in the Caribbean and in my own memory, those stories were passed down by grandmothers and mothers, usually while hair was being braided and so on. That's where I heard a lot of stories growing up. So this is West Indian Folktales. On the same vein is an anthology called Whispers from the Cotton Tree Root. And that anthology is edited by the fabulous Nalo Hopkinson. And I'll just read the back because I want to. Bring out your duppy and jumby tales, skin folk flights of fancy, rhapso futurist fables, your most dread of dread talks. So began Nalo Hopkinson's call for stories for this unique collection, and her fellow Caribbean writers responded. Whispers from the Cotton Tree Root is an anthology that captures the wild contrasts, the lushness of language and landscape, and the pure storytelling brilliance that have given the Caribbean a permanent hold on the minds of so many. Caribbean literature has always been immersed in the fabulist element, where the irrational and inexplicable exist side by side with the stuff of daily life. And this openness has infused Caribbean writing with a vitality and a freshness all its own. From spectral slaving ships to women who shed their skin at night to become owls, these stories pulse with the rhythms, visions, and tortured history of this spiritually rich region of the world. The Caribbean is a spiritually rich region of the world, regardless of what we might hear about various countries from the Caribbean. This is a book. It is I, Tituba, Black Witch of Salem, written by Maryse Conde. And I've read this book twice before, and I really, really, really love it. It is a fantastical, no, it's not. It's low fantasy. It is magical realism. It is also historical fiction. And this tells the story of a Black woman who was enslaved and who was allegedly a witch. And so that question about whether or not she was actually a witch is left open throughout this novel. And I don't actually believe that it gets resolved. But it certainly is a story that talks about the challenges faced by African women at that time, and some would argue argue even now, who dare to share the knowledge that they have, their knowledge of herbs, their knowledge of healing, their knowledge of the spiritual realm. But it also speaks to the strength of these women, the power of these women, the power of root magic, root knowledge, herbs and obia, and I think it's a wonderful, amazing read. And then finally, this, I haven't actually talked about this collection before. This is Pedagogies of Crossing, Meditations on Feminism, Sexual Politics, Memory, and the Sacred. And if y'all don't really know me, but you should know that I love stories of sea people, and I love the trope of African bodies underwater and our relationship with the waters and what that has meant over time. And if you look closely at this cover, you probably already know as well that I love cover art. I hope that you can see this. So this cover art speaks to me of the womb of the sea and power and the Middle Passage. And the reason that I wanted to bring up this book as a part of this tag is because the writer Jaqui Alexander, who is a professor, who is a spiritual leader and an all-around very magical, powerful woman who's doing some amazing eco-spiritual work in Tobago in particular. The reason why I wanted to bring this up is because her work bridges the academic, the political, the magical, the sacred. And when we as African people stand up against stereotypes or racist names or racist representations of us, I think one of the ways that we can do that most powerfully is if we tap into our magical and spiritual knowledge. And what Professor Alexander does in this is she provides ways to do that, from the mundane to the magical and to the sacred. And so I'll read a little bit here. Jaqui Alexander is one of the most important theorists of transnational feminism working today. Pedagogies of Crossing bring together essays she has written over the past decade, uniting her past incisive critiques, which have had such a profound impact on feminist, queer, and critical race theories, with some of her more recent work. In this landmark interdisciplinary volume, Alexander points to a number of critical imperatives made all the more urgent by contemporary manifestations of neo-imperialism and neo-colonialism. Among these are the need for North American feminism and queer studies to take up transnational frameworks that foreground questions of colonialism, political economy, and racial formation, for a thorough reconceptualization of modernity, to account for the heteronormative regulatory practices of modern state formations, and for feminists to wrestle with the spiritual dimensions of experience and the meaning of sacred subjectivity. In this multifaceted visionary book, Alexander maps the terrain of alternative histories and offers new forms of knowledge with which to mold alternative futures. So that last part in particular is really important, that if we are, like, part of the Afrofuturist project is to think about what this world should be in the future, and to unleash and untether our imaginations from traditions that center whiteness and maleness and heterosexuality. But in order to do that, we need to realize what wool has been pulled over our eyes, and we need to explore creatively this world that we're trying to bring into fruition. So I think that this really satisfies the academic portion of that project. And I really enjoyed the couple of essays that I've read so far, and I'm working my way slowly through this volume. So I encourage you to watch all of the other videos as a part of this tag, and if you are inspired by it like I was, I hope that you take some time to create a video yourself, and it might be the pure form of the tag, which is to choose authors or books written by authors from the countries that were mentioned in that racist comment, or it might be books that are inspired, like mine, from the tag itself, and that are designed to empower us to respond to racism in all of its many forms. So Diana, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much to you for creating this bold and transformative tag. This was awesome, and I enjoyed thinking about these books. And to those of you who are watching, thanks very much for watching ONYX Pages. Stick around. I'd love to chat with you in the comments. Okay, bye.